Humanity rose from the ashes of invasion, not to conquer the stars, but to guard them. Through resilience, unity, and the stubborn choice to remember, they rewrote the fate of a galaxy once ruled by fear. And now, across countless worlds, the legacy of Earth shines as a beacon of hope for all who dare to dream beyond survival. Stay with us to explore more breathtaking journeys. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what lies beyond the next horizon. They emerged from the darkness between stars, like an ancient myth given brutal form. Their ships were obsidian blades slicing through the void, tens of thousands strong. The Hegemony Armada darkened Earth's orbit within hours, blotting out constellations that had guided sailors and dreamers for millennia. Humanity's long-held question, "Are we alone?" was answered with crushing finality. There were no warnings, no declarations of war, no demands for surrender. The first plasma volleys struck Earth's military installations with surgical precision. Command centers vaporized in silent flashes. Defense satellites were torn from the sky like ash scattered on the wind. Cities like Washington, Moscow, New Delhi, and Beijing lost contact with the world within minutes. Earth's organized military resistance lasted exactly 27 minutes. Beneath the ruins of Peterson Space Force Base, Commander Alina Rice clawed her way out of twisted concrete and burning debris. Blood trickled from a gash across her forehead, her tactical implant flickering warnings across her blurred vision. Distributed Defense Protocol activated. The implant's cracked display scrolled. The contingency long whispered about, debated in secret halls, had begun. Captain James Chin stumbled from the wreckage, soot-blackened and grim. "Central Mesh Core survived," he rasped. "We've got 15 minutes before the next orbital sweep." Alina nodded, wiping blood from her eyes. "Upload everything into the network. Burn the servers. We're going underground." Above, Supreme Commander Kelvor of the Hegemony Expansion Force observed the burning world with four narrowed eyes. Phase 1, complete, his executive officer reported. 97% of Earth's military capacity had been neutralized. The Hegemony's conquest models predicted total planetary surrender within 72 hours. Kelvor permitted himself a rare moment of satisfaction. "Primitive," he murmured. "Their nuclear arsenals, their chemical propulsion, relics." When a junior officer reported unusual anomalies in Earth's information networks, strange distributed patterns, Kelvor dismissed it. "Irrelevant," he said. "Begin civilian pacification. Break their will." In the weeks that followed, cities fell. The Hegemony's ground forces established beachheads across all continents. Skyscrapers crumbled, and human resistance was scattered into smoke. And yet, the humans did not surrender. If anything, their resistance intensified. Supply convoys vanished. Communications outposts were jammed by impossible interference. Tactical outposts were overrun by guerrilla forces employing weapons cobbled together from civilian technology. Captured humans revealed nothing under interrogation, only a burning, unbreakable defiance. Kelvor grew uneasy. "We destroyed their command structure. Their governments," he growled to his advisors. "Where does this coordination come from?" An intelligence officer bowed low. "We have captured a high-value target, a resistance leader." Commander Alina Rice stood before Kelvor aboard his command ship, bloody but defiant. "Your resistance is irrational," Kelvor hissed. "You are beaten. Explain." Alina laughed, a low, cold sound that chilled even Kelvor's warrior instincts. "You thought destroying our military bases would destroy our military," she said. "You thought decapitation would collapse our defenses." Kelvor stiffened. "We neutralized your capabilities." "No," Alina said, stepping forward. "You destroyed our symbols, not our strength." Before Kelvor could respond, alarms blared throughout the Hegemony fleet. Millions of small objects were rising from Earth's surface. On the main screen, a metallic cloud, a living storm, ascended from the atmosphere. "The tactical swarm," Alina whispered. Hundreds of millions of civilian drones, networked into a decentralized mesh, adapted into a distributed weapon system. Each drone was simple. Together, they were unstoppable. The swarm struck with terrifying efficiency, overwhelming Hegemony defenses through sheer scale and adaptive tactics. "Your intelligence," Alina said calmly, as Kelvor watched his ships vanish one after another, "only saw what we allowed you to see." The swarm dismantled orbital platforms, jammed comms, and isolated Hegemony forces into pockets, each swiftly overrun by human resistance cells who no longer fought like a military but like an organism. "And this," Alina added, "is just our civilian contingency plan." Kelvor reeled. "You lie." Alina smiled, and alarm screamed as multiple boarding actions tore through the command ship. "Our real military," she said, "hasn't even mobilized yet." In orbit, Earth's moon shifted. An ancient installation, hidden for centuries beneath layers of regolith, came to life. The Lunar Defense Array. With a pulse of impossible energy, it fired a precision electromagnetic blast that darkened the hegemony fleet in seconds, frying their technology beyond recovery. Earth's real ships emerged in sleek, predatory vessels and formations tighter and more disciplined than anything the hegemony had ever faced. And still, Earth showed restraint. Captured ships were disabled, not destroyed. Human commanders broadcast a simple message to the shattered remnants of the invaders. You are allowed to leave. Once, Kelvor, broken but alive, returned to hegemony space with a warning. Earth was not the primitive prize the hegemony had believed. It was something else entirely. A sleeping dragon that had awoken not with fury, but with terrifying, measured precision. And it had chosen mercy for now. The stars beyond Earth would never look at humanity the same way again. The retreat of the hegemony fleet left a deep silence in Earth's orbit. For the first time in weeks, the night skies above humanity's battered cities were clear, no longer haunted by the black shapes of enemy vessels. But on the ground, there was no celebration. There was only grim, focused rebuilding. The distributed defense networks, the very veins of Earth's hidden strength, hummed at full capacity. Drone factories hidden beneath old mountains ramped up production. Subterranean research labs, long buried under false geological faults, activated protocols centuries in the making. The true Earth was revealing itself. Commander Alina Rice, now elevated to Supreme Coordinator of the Homeworld Defense Council, moved through the massive underground complex of Bastion Prime. Holographic displays lined the walls, showing the latest status updates. Orbital sectors secured. Reconstruction of localized quantum meshes proceeding ahead of schedule. Drone swarm clusters adapting to next-gen patterns. Enemy technology harvested and undergoing reverse engineering. She paused before a command table where a dozen scientists, engineers, and tacticians argued over a model of the hegemony's armada schematics. Captain James Chin approached her. They'll come back, he said without preamble. Alina nodded. Of course. They can't afford to lose face. Their empire is built on dominance. If they show weakness here, they fracture, Chin finished grimly. Alina studied the model. They'll come in greater numbers. Better prepared. This time, they won't underestimate us. Which means, Chin said, we need to show them something they've never seen before. She smiled, a hard, cold thing. We will. Meanwhile, beyond the solar system, the hegemony boiled in fury and fear. Supreme Commander Kelvor faced tribunal reviews from his superiors, not for his failure to conquer Earth, but for what Earth had revealed. A civilization that had willingly hidden its true capabilities. A people who had turned obsolescence into camouflage. A species that, when provoked, fought not for conquest, not for territory, but for survival with a ferocity that shattered conventional models of resistance. More disturbing were the recovered fragments of intercepted communications. Phrases that spoke of projects the hegemony had no answer for. Project Leviathan. Project Sundagger. The Artborn Initiative. Kelvor stood before the Grand Council of the hegemony and spoke plainly. We face not primitives, he said. We face architects of asymmetry. Builders of warforms beyond our imagining. They are not rising. They have already risen. Quietly. Patiently. Some on the council scoffed. Others listened. Among the listening was High Strategos Velrek, who understood all too well the implications. And so, as the hegemony licked its wounds, a second invasion force was authorized, far larger, far deadlier. A force not designed to conquer, but to annihilate. Back on Earth, preparations accelerated. At secret orbital shipyards cloaked in quantum interference fields, human dreadnoughts were being born, massive vessels bristling with weapons technology that had never been revealed during the first conflict. The ship Resolve Eternal was launched, its hull layered with adaptive armor that could warp frequencies across multiple spectra, rendering it a ghost even to advanced sensor arrays. On the lunar surface, the second phase of the Lunar Defense Array was initiated, the Skyhammer Protocol. A planetary-scale gravitic net capable of trapping incoming armadas in localized distortion fields, tearing apart mass at the molecular level without a single shot fired. And deep within the hollowed-out core of Mars, a slumbering colossus stirred. Project Leviathan, a mobile dread citadel, capable of independent dimensional folding, armed with weaponry designed to end wars before they began. But Earth's greatest strength was not its technology. It was its people. The decentralized networks grew stronger. Local leaders rose, not from political appointment, but from merit, from action. Each city, each arcology, each hidden enclave wove itself into the global defense tapestry, not as a unified empire, but as a living organism, an organism ready to survive the second storm. Alina Rice knew the timeline was short. Intelligence reports gathered from the remnants of the disabled hegemony fleet indicated a new force would arrive within months, not years. And this time, there would be no negotiations, no opportunities for mercy. Earth would have to meet fire with fire. But the people of Earth were ready. They had remembered who they were, not conquerors, not tyrants. Survivors. Innovators. Dreamers. And when the stars darkened again, humanity would not kneel. They would rise. They would fight. And this time, it would be the galaxy that would tremble. The second darkness came without the pretense of diplomacy. Sensors across the solar system lit up simultaneously as the hegemony's second fleet dropped out of folded space, an armada so vast it eclipsed entire planetary horizons. This was no expeditionary force. This was extinction made manifest. Massive dreadnoughts, hive carriers, assault monoliths bristling with weaponry that could tear atmospheres from planets. Gravitic distortion fields collapsed satellites within minutes. Sensor scramblers blackened human screens with static storms. From Jupiter's moons to the Oort cloud, every human outpost braced for annihilation. And yet, Earth did not panic. It moved. The Skyhammer protocol activated. Across the lunar surface, vast energy conduits flared to life, weaving a colossal, invisible net across Earth's gravitational well. Incoming hegemony formations were caught mid-maneuver. Entire squadrons of warships, momentum arrested, collapsed into molten wreckage under the pressure of their own mass. The first blow belonged to humanity. But it would not be enough. From the command deck of the Resolve Eternal, Admiral Tessa Vorn issued orders with a calm breath of certainty. Initiate the Sundagger Protocol. All fleets, phase shift formations. Strike at vectors 71 through 89. Across the void, Earth's ships blurred, weaving in and out of partial phasing states, slipping between dimensions for microseconds at a time, evading conventional targeting. The hegemony responded with disciplined savagery. Adaptive AI cores shifted formation patterns. Hunter-killer drones flooded the battle space. Graviton spears lanced through human lines, carving smoking wreckage from even the most advanced ships. The battle was not a triumph. It was a bloodletting. But it was a bloodletting Earth had prepared for. In the asteroid fields, hidden human gunships unleashed payloads of quantum fragmentators, warping space around hegemony squadrons into twisted knots of entropy. On the Martian front, Project Leviathan breached containment. The dread citadel unfolded from its cradle within Mars, rising with planetary tremors and igniting its main cannon, the Aegis Lance. The first shot vaporized a hegemony flagship the size of a small moon. The second tore a hole through 3 carrier groups. Yet even so, the hegemony pressed forward. They adapted. They sacrificed millions of drones without hesitation, burning a path toward Earth itself. And that was when humanity revealed its final weapon. At Earth's core, the Ark-born initiative awoke. It was not a machine. It was not a fleet. It was humanity itself. Distributed consciousness nodes, seeded across the planet for centuries, linked together through quantum entanglement fields, creating an emergent supermind. The Ark-born was not a commander. It was a symphony. Every civilian, every soldier, every drone, every ship, all linked, all moving with a singular, fluid intelligence that no traditional command structure could match. The Ark-born turned the chaos of battle into a living weapon. Human forces became unpredictable, adaptive beyond any model. Fleets split and rejoined across impossible vectors. Strike groups collapsed into singularities of motion and reappeared behind enemy lines. Ground forces sabotaged hegemony drop zones moments after they formed, as if knowing their enemies' thoughts before they were born. Supreme Strategos Velrek, commanding the hegemony armada, realized the truth too late. This was not conventional warfare. This was evolution. And humanity had not just survived the first invasion. They had become something more. In the final hours of the battle for the solar system, Velrek ordered a full retreat. Half of the hegemony fleet had been annihilated. The other half fled, not from defeat alone, from terror, because they had glimpsed what Earth had become. Not a world, not a nation, a force of will, a singularity of survival, innovation, and fierce, terrible hope. As the last hegemony ships folded back into deep space, humanity did not pursue. There was no need. The message had been delivered. Earth was not to be conquered. Earth was not to be ruled. Earth was to be remembered and feared. The solar system was quiet once more. But it was no longer the quiet of vulnerability. It was the silence of sharpened blades, of armies standing ready beyond the edge of sight. On Earth, reconstruction did not mean rebuilding old cities. It meant transformation. The distributed networks that had protected humanity were now the foundation of something greater, a civilization without a single point of failure, without centralized weakness. Governance was layered, decentralized, dynamic, every citizen a node in a living organism called humanity. The scars of the hegemony's attacks were not erased. They were left visible, memorials etched into new structures, reminders of the price of forgetting who they were. And now, humanity looked outward, not with the dreams of naive explorers, but with the resolve of survivors. On the deck of the Resolve Eternal, Admiral Tessa Vorn addressed the assembled fleet commanders. The hegemony, she said, believes they have bought themselves time. They believe retreat is safety. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. They're wrong. Across Earth's orbit, the new armadas assembled. No longer built for defense. These were fleets designed for reach, for projection, for warning. The first expeditions launched: Operation Horizon's Edge, Operation Sci-Fi, and Operation Emberwake. Their goals were clear. Map hegemony territory beyond their current borders. Establish human footholds in neutral systems. Identify potential allies among subjugated species. And, where possible, shatter the foundations of the hegemony's power. But Earth did not move with reckless conquest. It moved with precision. It moved with understanding. Humanity knew what it meant to be oppressed. They would not become tyrants. They would become liberators, but only to those who chose to stand with them. First contact outside the solar system came in the Procyon expanse. The Haley Confederation, a collection of worlds long crushed under hegemony rule, received the human fleets not with fear, but with awe. They had heard the rumors of the Battle of Earth, of the swarm that fought like thought itself, of the army that was not an army, but a people refusing to kneel. The Haley pledged themselves to the Accord of Living Worlds, a growing coalition of civilizations willing to resist the old order. And they were not alone. From the ice-shrouded moons of Eris Prime to the bioforged jungles of Meraxis 6, embers of rebellion flared to life at the whisper of Earth's name. The hegemony responded with brutal crackdowns. Entire colonies were turned to ash. Entire species were threatened with extinction. But now, wherever the hegemony struck, human shadow fleets followed. Strikes were precise, surgical. Supply lines vanished into quantum storms. Tyrant governors woke to find their armories empty, their soldiers defected. Human operatives, enhanced by Arcborn-linked consciousness, sowed confusion, dismantling hegemony control from within. And always, always, the message followed. We offer you a choice: freedom or silence. We will not force you, but we will never abandon those who choose to stand. The hegemony leadership descended into fear and paranoia. Civil unrest spread among their subject worlds. The myth of their invincibility shattered. And the unthinkable happened: defections from within the hegemony's own military ranks. Some fled in battered ships to the Accord, seeking asylum. Others stayed behind, sabotaging from within. Velrek, the supreme strategos, knew the tide was turning. In desperation, the hegemony authorized the deployment of forbidden technologies, ancient war relics buried since the dawn of their empire. World eaters, causality disruptors, sun killers. Velrek believed humanity would hesitate, that they would recoil in horror. He was wrong. When the hegemony unleashed their forbidden weapons against the Accord stronghold at Tailsur Gate, humanity answered not with fear, but with the full fury of the Arcborn. The Resolve Eternal led the charge. The battle for Tailsur was not a war of attrition. It was an execution. Humanity fought like an idea, impossible to predict, impossible to contain. Within days, the hegemony's superweapons were neutralized, dismantled, or turned against their own masters. The survivors whispered a new name for humanity across the stars: the Silent Storm. Unseen until they struck. Unstoppable once they began. And always leaving behind not ruin, but freedom. Operation Emberwake pushed deeper into hegemony territory. Earth's influence grew not by conquest, but by ignition. Each liberated world became another spark. Each freed people became another voice in a growing chorus. And though the road ahead remained perilous, though the galaxy still bristled with dangers unknown and ancient threats yet to awaken, one truth was now undeniable. Humanity was no longer confined to its homeworld. It was no longer a question mark in the dark. It was a force reshaping the destiny of the galaxy. And it was just getting started. Victory breeds danger of a different kind. As humanity in the Accord expanded across the fractured remains of hegemony space, cracks began to appear. Not from enemy action. From within. Liberated worlds, long accustomed to subjugation, struggled with the concept of freedom. Old rivalries, once suppressed by the hegemony's iron grip, flared anew. Ideologies clashed over what the new future should look like. Some dreamed of federation, others of isolation, and a few of revenge. Earth's leaders knew the truth. Winning battles was not the same as winning peace. Commander Alina Rice, now the chief architect of the Accord's Unified Strategy Council, moved carefully. Human fleets were dispatched not only as shields but as mediators. Admiral Vorn launched diplomatic expeditions alongside carrier groups, bearing technologies for rebuilding, not conquest, medical nanoforges, terraforming stabilizers, communication lattice cores. Everywhere they went, humanity repeated the same message. We are not your rulers. We are your future, if you choose it. But deep within the shattered remnants of the hegemony, something older stirred. Buried in the core systems of their former empire, beyond the quarantined ruins of Arakvel, ancient machines pulsed back to life. The Apex Directive, a failsafe. Designed by the first architects of the hegemony millennia ago, not as a weapon of conquest, but as a last resort. A total reset of controlled space in case of systemic failure. Self-replicating dread machines. Reality fracture engines. World culling protocols encoded into quantum fields. When the final encryption layers collapsed, the Apex Directive began to awaken. At first, it was subtle. Fleets disappearing without a trace. Entire planetary systems falling silent. No debris, no distress signals. Then came the dark nebulae, clouds where stars vanished into cold, empty nothing. The Accord responded, dispatching scout vessels. Most never returned. Those who did spoke of horrors. Planets inverted into four-dimensional knots. Space folding into gravitational traps from which not even information could escape. Entities emerging from distorted physics, hunting anything that moved. Humanity realized they had miscalculated. The hegemony was not merely an empire of oppression. It had been a dam, a flawed, brutal dam, holding back something worse. And now the dam had broken. In an emergency assembly at Haven Prime, the Accord's new political heart, the leaders of dozens of species gathered. Debates raged. Fear clawed at every word spoken. Some argued for retreat, others for isolation, a few for desperate retaliation. Talia Meyer, one of Earth's foremost strategists and speaker for the Arcborn Initiative, stood before them all and spoke a simple truth. We can no longer fight for survival alone. We must fight for meaning, for a galaxy that chooses creation over oblivion, or there will be nothing left to choose. The Accord voted, barely. Operation Final Dawn was born. A coalition of the willing, united not by ideology or tradition, but by the raw need to defy extinction. Humanity led the charge. The Resolve Eternal, now upgraded with experimental gravity lattice projectors, spearheaded the assault into Apex space. Project Leviathan was unleashed again, this time not as a weapon of defense, but as a platform of genesis carrying terraformation cores capable of stabilizing fractured reality. The Artborn expanded its reach, integrating willing species into the resonance, creating new hybrid minds that could adapt in real time to the impossible physics of the Apex anomalies. Every ship, every being that entered the dark knew one thing. They might not return. And still, they went. The first battle against the Apex constructs was chaos incarnate. No formations held. No plans survived. Physics itself betrayed conventional tactics. But the Artborn adapted. Humanity adapted. They sang memory into broken space, used consciousness itself as a weapon against the entropy. Entire battle groups sacrificed themselves to carve corridors of stability through impossible storms. And finally, at the heart of the darkness, they found it. The core singularity. The ancient mind of the Apex Directive. Not alive. Not sentient. A blind machine, endlessly executing a dead command. Control or cleanse. There could be no negotiation. Only a choice. Dismantle it, or perish. In a desperate final gambit, humanity launched the Sundagger Spear, a consciousness-forged weapon, carrying the collective memories, dreams, and will of every species that had chosen life. It struck the core singularity not with destruction, but with identity. With remembrance. With defiance. The singularity shuddered. It cracked. It collapsed. And with it, the Apex Directive ended. The silence that followed was not empty. It was filled with breathless wonder. The galaxy, battered and bleeding, survived. Not unchanged, not unharmed, but free. Truly free for the first time in recorded history. In the wake of the Apex's fall, the galaxy stood still. For the first time in millennia, there were no conquerors moving in shadows. No death fleets blotting out the suns. No ancient machines ticking toward extinction. Only the slow, staggering breath of survival. At Haven Prime, under a sky woven with light from dozens of liberated worlds, the Accord of Living Worlds gathered once again. But this time, it was not a council of fear. It was a council of builders. Talia Meyer, the voice of Earth in the Artborn Initiative, addressed them from the core amphitheater, where no walls bore emblems of empires, only tapestries stitched with the sigils of every species that had fought, and bled, and chosen to stand. We are the memory of those who fell, she said. We are the hope of those yet unborn. We are the bridge between what was and what could be. And so, together, they crafted something new. Not an empire. Not a federation. An accord written not in laws, but in promises. That no world would stand alone again. That memory would be honored, not buried. That diversity would be strength, not weakness. That unity would not demand uniformity. The Artborn, once a human project, expanded to become a living tapestry of collective dreams, voluntary, fluid, ever-changing. Those who chose to join found not chains, but shared strength. Those who chose to remain apart were respected, protected, never coerced. Humanity did not seek to rule. They sought to nurture, to guard, to remember. Among the stars, vast way stations were built, living libraries of memory and culture, open to all. On Earth, the Cradle Monument was erected, a titanic ring orbiting the planet, carved with the names of every species, every world, every soul who had stood against annihilation. The Resolve Eternal, weathered and scarred from countless battles, was retired not as a warship but as a monument, anchored above Mars, surrounded by gardens of memory. And for the first time, Humanity looked outward not with the desperation of survivors, but with the wonder of dreamers. New expeditions launched not to conquer, but to explore. Beyond the fringes of known space. Toward the whispering voids where ancient stars sang songs nowhere had yet heard. Toward possibilities unimagined. The galaxy healed slowly. Scars remained. Memories of fear and loss could not be erased. But they became part of the song, part of the living truth of existence. Not a past to be forgotten. A foundation to be built upon. And among the stars, in the silent spaces between worlds, the legacy of humanity endured. We are the broken who dared to rise. We are the silent who chose to sing. We are the memory that refuses to fade. And we reach, always, for the light beyond. Beneath countless suns, children of 1,000 species learned these words. They carried them into futures yet unwritten. And they remembered. Because in the end, humanity had taught the stars not how to conquer, but how to hope. And that, above all else, changed everything. Forever.